Hello, my name is Porter Swenzel. I am from Santa Clara, Pueblo, New Mexico. I serve as an assistant professor in Indigenous Liberal Studies at the Institute of American Indian Arts, and am currently a PhD student in the School of Social Transformation at Arizona State University. This presentation focuses on the Pueblo food experience, which is an ongoing project promoted by Flowering Tree Permaculture Institute. I have been a researcher, participant, and advocate for this project for nearly a decade. This project began with a visit to the doctor's office in 2008. As you can see in this picture, I was significantly overweight and was suffering from a number of health issues. I went to the doctors in 2008 and was told I was in danger of dying at any time because of these health issues. The doctor gave me a colorful brochure that included the food pyramid that can be seen in this slide. I was instructed to follow this food pyramid to find well-being. As I looked at the pyramid, I thought to myself, how many of these foods come from the Americas? How many of these foods come from North America? How many of these foods are indigenous to the American Southwest, where my ancestors thrived for thousands of years? Very few of the foods depicted in this slide come from the Americas. At the same time, I thought about the health issues I was facing and how similar they were to health issues faced by indigenous communities around the United States. Many research projects in recent decades have centered on the health issues faced by Native communities. As can be seen from this slide, the issues faced by Native communities are dire. However, I also knew that these health issues were a recent phenomena. Pueblo peoples do not have these same issues as recently as a couple generations ago. Pueblo peoples have been thriving in the Southwest for thousands of years as subsistence agriculturalists, hunters, and gatherers. This highly successful lifestyle was the way people lived well into the last century. Government statisticians were surprised at the relative health of Pueblo peoples as compared to other populations as recently as 1939. This was in large part due to our continuation of indigenous nutrition and lifeways. Based on this knowledge, I decided that I would not follow the food pyramid that the doctors had given me. Instead, I would eat a traditional Pueblo diet. But what does that mean? To me, tradition means those practices and beliefs that come from a group of people's long relationship with a particular place. When I began eating a traditional Pueblo diet, I chose to eat only those foods that were available to my ancestors prior to the invasion of the Southwest by Spanish colonialists in 1598. For the next 3 months, I ate only the food that my ancestors ate, and I returned to the doctor. He was surprised at how much weight I had lost and how healthy I had become. The doctor asked if I had followed the brochure, and I said that I had not. I told him that I had done what I had done for the last 3 months. The doctor could not believe that this had led to such a turnaround in health, especially since I did not follow the prescribed program. He decided that his initial diagnosis and tests must have been in error. I didn't care, because I knew that eating the food of my ancestors had healed me. However, this idea was not necessarily a new one. Doing later research, I learned that others had explored the same idea as myself. In particular, a dentist named Weston Price had looked at societies around the world that had eaten a traditional diet and found that they exhibited better dental health and, as a result, better overall health. These societies ate radically different foods and lived in different parts of the world. However, eating their traditional foods had led them to be healthy. Price's ideas were looked down on because they did not point to a universal idea of nutrition. Instead, they pointed to a plan of well-being tied to people's relationship with their places. This idea can be threatening to global economic and power structures. Fast forward to 2013, and I regained the weight I had lost and more. One of the issues that came from the initial experiment was that I was the only participant in a family that enjoyed all of the unhealthy modern foods that are available to all of us every day. My mother, Roxanne Swenzel, came up with the idea of creating a community of traditional Pueblo dieters who would support each other. This group would also be supported by Flowering Tree Permaculture Institute. A group of 14 volunteers from different Pueblo communities were gathered together to eat a pre-contact diet for 3 months. The participants ranged in age from 6 to 65 and were in a wide range of health states. Some were very healthy, others faced significant health issues like diabetes and heart disease. All the participants had to agree to take a full panel blood test at the beginning and at the end of the project. This would counter the experience that I had of having doctors doubt the results. For the next 3 months, we ate pre-contact food of the Southwest. We started with an ingredient list that included corn, squash, beans, wild currants, juniper berries, four-winged saltbush, elk, deer, rabbit, duck, and buffalo. Notably absent from the diet were many of the modern staples of our diets. We could not eat wheat, oats, pork, beef, chicken, sugar, coffee, dairy, and almost any fruit. Participants took these ingredients and found creatively delicious ways of preparing the food. Preparation posed some challenges as well. There were important differences between the way our ancestors prepared their food and the way that we do so today. One of the biggest differences was that they did not fry food. This was largely due to the lack of processed oils. Most food was prepared by boiling, steaming, baking, or drying. Here you can see beans cooking in a pot made by my mother. Because we live in the desert Southwest, we are blessed with the opportunity to dry just about anything. This includes things that you might not think about drying. Here are a variety of foods being dried. Some corn, some squash, wild celery, beans, pumpkin seeds, and wild spinach. Eating food was only one part of the Pueblo food experience. Many of the participants had the profound experience of walking into a grocery store and not being able to buy almost anything from inside. Here they were inside this giant warehouse full of food, and yet they could not eat 95% of it. Well, maybe some beans on aisle 11. This experience reminded participants of the importance of the lifeways of our ancestors. Farming, hunting, and gathering had played a critical role in how our ancestors had thrived. Some participants were familiar with these practices. On the right is my mom, who has spent most of her life practicing sustainable lifeways. Farming is one of those lifeways that has sustained Pueblo peoples for nearly 2,000 years. Connecting or reconnecting with traditional farming practices was an important experience for many of the participants. Harvesting was no longer a matter of preparing for ceremonial activities, but an important source of food. Many participants relied on family hunters to supply meat. However, Flowering Tree Permaculture Institute also purchased a whole buffalo to divide among the participants during the project. Here you can see the hide and head of the buffalo, which all will be used by the community later on. Gathering is an ancient activity that goes back tens of thousands of years. This activity was another reminder that lifeways were tied to places and the changing of seasons. You cannot gather wild spinach all year round, and cactus fruits are only available at certain times. A person needs to be in relationship with their homelands to know when to gather food. Another important gathering activity is for those minerals that are vital to our health as desert dwellers. Traditional stories spoke about places where our ancestors had gathered salt. Many of those places are no longer accessible because they are on private land. One of the powerful experiences that the group had was gathering and processing salt from one of these ancient salt beds that also happened to be on private land. The results of the Pueblo food experience amazed the participants. Everyone lost some weight, some more than others, and the concluding blood tests had shown significant improvements in health. Some participants no longer faced the significant health issues that had impacted them at the beginning of the project. Here I am standing on the left at the very beginning of the project. Beginning from that time, over the next year, I lost 90 pounds, and I have managed to change my lifestyle and maintain my well-being in the years since the initial project. Many of the participants in this project spoke about how eating the foods of their ancestors had been a life-changing experience. Younger generations are familiar with these foods and their preparation. They understand how important these lifeways were and continue to be for the well-being of Pueblo communities. By looking at our past, reestablishing a relationship with our place, and listening to those who came before, we have found ways to thrive in the future. Thank you for listening to me present about this important project.